United States foster care system is becoming more and more corrupt throughout the years, and if we don't make a change, there'll be no good outcome. The Annie E. Casey Foundation states that the absence of family, familiar surroundings, and predictable next steps are some of the greatest hardships that kids in foster care face.
A lot of times, they move people around and they don't even have a set plan. They'll move you out of your house, but they don't even have a place for you to go to. It's inhumane, to be honest, especially for a kid, It's very traumatic.
The system in its current state makes these kids constantly cycling through different caretakers, some not being able to fill the parental void that these kids are searching for.
Stability impacts your ability to be able to make meaningful connections with people. When you come from a stable environment, then you're able to grow and flourish. It goes back to the word stability. Is it true? Is stability a word that foster care kids ever have? And I say no.
Most foster care kids taken out of their homes aren't placed with extended families such as aunts, uncles, and grandparents, and instead end up with unfamiliar faces.
Despite the challenges facing grandfamilies, children fare well in the care of relatives. Compared to children in non-relative care, they have more stability and are more likely to report feeling loved.
Kids are placed away from their families, struggling to get any time with them.
Currently, there are over 391,000 children and youth in foster care. Up to 80% of children in foster care have significant mental health issues. Mental and behavioral health is the largest unmet need for these children and teens.
When I was living in a foster home, Miss Brickley, who was the elementary music teacher at a school that they had moved me to, because at the school that I was at in Oskaloosa, Iowa, I was a hellion.
When a child is dealing with poor mental health, it can lead to struggles in their education. Stress, anxiety, sleep difficulties, and depression all play a factor in how a child is able to learn and succeed. Foster kids that are struggling with poor mental health, trauma, and poor education are now given little to no funding to become stable adults.
Specifically, I aged out of foster care when I was 18. And what that ultimately means is that when you turn 18, if you haven't been adopted, there's really nothing to do with you. And that's a really, really scary time.
What happens is young people, no families, no supports, often no place to live. It's not surprising that they don't finish high school and they end up in trouble.
When kids age out of foster care, which is the fate of about 20,000 young people annually, they often lack the support and connections needed to thrive in adulthood.
The second thing that we must do is we must absolutely set these children up for financial success.
Advocates such as the Youth Transition Funders Group supports the well-being and economic success of vulnerable people ages 14 to 25. But there's still a need for programs like these to support transitioning youth.
Oftentimes, people feel discouraged to adopt or foster children because they know it'll take a lot of time, patience, and hard work.
So I think that is the biggest thing. They're just afraid of how this will impact their home environment.
Out of all the adults in the United States, only 2 to 4% have adopted, and less than 1% that have not yet adopted are still waiting to.
Even if you don't want to or are unable to officially adopt a child from the foster care system, you can still make a difference in other ways.
You can become a court-appointed special advocate through organizations such as Texas CASA, which is a special nonprofit organization that gives training and coaching to everyday people to advocate for these children. Volunteers gather information from everyone involved in a child's daily life and report to a judge to advocate for the child's best interests and safety.
So if an adult is interested in being able to support a foster care student, then they're willing to go through the training, they can do that.
But focusing on the system is not the only solution. We also need to focus on preventing them from being in this situation in the first place.
Had my mother received preventative and ongoing services and saw her as a victim and not a drug addict, my siblings and I may have not needed to spend so much of our childhood in foster care.
The U.S. needs to see major transformation in the next 20 years in our foster care system, or else the future generations will not be able to reach their full potential as leaders.
So how can we achieve this?
To transform the foster care system, we need to listen to the youth who are in it. They need their voices to be heard.
When children and families have a voice and a vested interest, we will realize those outcomes much more efficiently and effectively.
You can volunteer, but I want you to go and connect with foster care kids.
It takes a village to help these kids. Understanding that empathy, that's the thing that I don't see enough of.
And there's always opportunities to provide goods and needs, coats and clothing and school supplies.
Change is possible with the help of funding, advocacy, and support for these children who have been failed by this system.